Hello friends and welcome to Simply Quilting. Today I'm sharing with you how I quilted my fall quilt. I've done a couple of other videos on this same quilt. One where I made the leaf block and one where I put the actual quilt together with sashings and cornerstones. And so today I've finally gotten it onto the long arm and I wanted to share that with you as well. I'm calling this pattern Swirling Leaves because when I looked at the quilt after it had been quilted, it just reminded me of the leaves in the fall when the wind gets to blowing them and they are swirling around almost like a little mini tornado, at least here in North Texas on our place where we have lots of oak trees. So I'll just kind of walk you through the steps that I'm using here to quilt this beautiful little quilt. As you can see, I'm making a row of swirls that go from edge to edge, sort of like a pantograph, but I'm just freehanding, free motion quilting this. And I'm not making a full swirl, as you can see there. I'm only making about a half swirl, and I'm sort of keeping my lines thin so that it has a full looking swirl. And then I'm going back and echoing on either side of that row of swirls. So right now I'm echoing on the top half of that row, and then I'll come down below and do another echo on the bottom of that swirl. And I think that's really what gives it the character that you see at the beginning there. It really adds a lot of texture, and that's what I was after, a really cool texture look in this quilt. So here I am starting a new row, and every other row I tried to make it swirl a different direction, or the opposite direction. So I'll go all the way from the left edge over to the right edge, making those big half swirls. And I'm not trying to make them all the same size, but I am trying to make each row sort of the same, but I'm not measuring anything. I'm just eyeballing everything, because if you're out in nature and you see the leaves swirling, they're not all going to be swirling in the same direction or blowing in the same direction. Not in Texas anyway. So I'll just go all the way to the end. I'm making my swirls opposite the row before it. One thing to keep in mind if you're doing this pattern is to leave enough room when you go down to the next swirl, line of swirls. Make sure you leave enough room on the top of that row, between the top of that row and the bottom of the row above it, to go back in and do your echoes. I think the echoes really add a lot, so I want to make sure I get those in. Right now I'm going to the bottom of that same row and putting in my echo. I've sped up the video just a little bit here to keep it from being too long. So now you saw me do one complete row, and I'm getting close to the bottom edge. So what I'm doing is I float my quilts. So I have attached the backing to the belly bar leader, and I've secured that with my clamps. And I also pinned my top down right along that bottom edge there, leaving room, of course, to stitch along that edge there without having to move the pins first. So then I'll stitch down as far as I can on each side of my quilt top just to hold it in place. I can't get all the way to the bottom of the quilt on my machine because I have a Quilting 15R, which has a 15-inch throat space, and so I will have to advance my quilt one more time to finish it off. But in the meantime, I'll do another row of stitching and just let you watch that for a little bit. So after I finished that row, I went ahead and advanced the quilt just a little bit more, and you can see I'm about to take my straight edge ruler. This is a 1/4 inch thick ruler. It's made for long arming. Don't use your regular quilting rulers on this, your cutting rulers on these. Otherwise, your hopping foot could jump up on top of it and really cause you some problems. Okay, so I'm just stitching that edge of that quilt down now, and then as soon as I get to the end of that, I'll go back and do my last row of swirls. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're making these swirls, make sure you keep your shapes nice and round, because if you're not careful, you can get them sort of oblong shaped, and that is not that doesn't make a very nice looking design when you do that. So we'll go ahead and finish this up and show you how it turns out. Okay, we've finished quilting. Now I like to take my big pink scissors and just trim right along the edge of my quilt, or leave just a little bit of batting on there, so that I can go back and trim it just a little bit better with my rotary cutter. But it looks like this time I'm trimming right next to the edge, so I shouldn't have to do anything else before I put my binding on there. Just makes it easier when you don't have a large flat surface to work on, to just go ahead and just cut it off like that. And I will just pull it down and just work the sides the same way, and then cut the top part off. Makes it so much easier not to have to deal with all the bulk of the extra batting and backing. So I'll just finish taking that off the frame, and then we'll see what it looks like. Yes, be very careful that you don't cut your leaders if you are taking your quilt off using this process. So I will be taking these long strips of um, backing that I'm cutting off here. As you can see, some of them are pretty wide. When I'm doing my own quilt, sometimes I'll leave a little extra on each side. You don't really need that much. I think I had about 6 inches. You do need 4 inches though on each side at least. That way my clamps don't have to be so close to my quilt that it gets in the way of my quilting. So, but anyway, I'll take those long strips and I will use my AccuQuilt cutting system strip cutter, and I will cut long strips in different widths. I can use some for borders, I can use some for binding, I can use some for sashing, and that way I will already have those strips made up and ready to go when I need them. Now this design is a relatively easy and quick design to put on your quilt, just to provide some beautiful texture. And if you're a beginning quilter, don't give up on yourself. It really is about practice and learning new techniques. When I first started, I learned all I could from quilters on YouTube and a special friend that helped me. So it really is about practice and getting used to your equipment, and just a whole lot of things all together. But give yourself grace, and we'll see you all next time. So in the meantime, stay thankful and make something pretty. God bless.